Greetings, everyone. Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Let's not waste any time. Here's the titles, and we'll get right into the rant. Review. Welcome back. Well, some people are saying that Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen is the worst movie ever made.
That's not true.
I wouldn't go that far,
No.
but it's certainly not the best movie ever made, as some other people are saying, amazingly enough. Okay, so let's start off by talking about some of the things that we liked about it.
Oh, you're fun.
There's a few things.
I guess. Okay, you start.
Well, one of the things I liked was that there was more focus on the robots this time, and not as much focus on the humans. While there still was a lot of focus on the humans, we at least saw a lot more robot stuff this time around.
Yeah.
Would you care to elaborate?
No, I mean it was good. I liked the fact that they had more of different Autobots, more different characters from Transformers.
Yeah, there was a lot more of the robot characters this time around, a lot that weren't in the first one.
Yeah.
And they just seemed to have them doing more stuff and interacting more with the human characters, but also on their own, and there was more banter between them and stuff like that. So that was nice to see. And as you say, it was nice to see more characters in it, because the first one seemed to be kind of light on characters. I mean, you had a handful of Autobots and a handful of Decepticons.
Yeah, but they were just trying to introduce you to them.
Well, yeah,
so.
that's true. But
Yeah.
It was nice to see more of the robot characters worked in this time, and quite a few new ones too, and sort of new takes on the classic characters as well. One of which was, of course, Jetfire.
Yeah.
And he was actually one of the characters that we enjoyed. I of course am a fan of the show from way back, and Annetta is still fairly new to the whole Transformers world. You mostly just know the
Beast Wars,
like the new movies. Yeah, she's seen Beast Wars, which was great. It ties in with the old series quite nicely, and of course you've seen the original Transformers movie, the cartoon movie.
I fell asleep. I have to admit, I fell asleep.
It was so exciting she fell asleep. Yeah, well, we'll be having a reviewing of that at some point. But anyway,
Damn it.
Jetfire. Yeah, Jetfire was fun. I like the fact he was sort of just this cranky, old
rickety
robot
old robot
with a big cane.
Yeah, I really liked him. He was my favorite of all of them.
Yeah, in the original series, he was older in the respect that he had been to Earth before all of the characters, like all the main characters that we know from the series. He had been there. He used to be a scientist. He used to work with Starscream before Starscream went bad, basically, and they had been just out on exploring, like scientific exploration missions, and Jetfire had crashed on the planet and frozen and supposedly died, but then they unearthed him millions of years later when the rest of them showed up. And yeah, so it was kind of nice to see Jetfire put into the movie, even though he was quite a bit different from the character from the show. The spirit of it was still kind of there, in that he had been there for a long time, and was old and cranky now. And you mentioned something about the opening sequence.
Yeah, I really liked how when you first start off, they talk about this new task force or whatever like that. You have no idea who this task force is, and all of a sudden it's like all the Autobots trying to uncover all the Decepticons.
Yeah, it's like
the world.
the Autobots teamed up with the army to hunt down the remaining Decepticons and basically just
annihilate
capture
them,
kill them, whatever. Just take them out of the equation, and
that was, I thought that was a really nice start to the movie.
Yeah, it was cool to see the Autobots working together with the humans to combat the Decepticon menace, or what was left of it, by from the end of the previous movie to the beginning of the new one.
Yeah. So Megatron.
I was actually happy to see Megatron get a little bit more to do this time. I wasn't overly thrilled with the Fallen character. I know that it's a major part of the plot and everything. It ties into the ancient
I
crimes
wasn't really
and
that
stuff
impressed.
like that. But yeah, I don't like the idea of Megatron being somebody's lackey. You know, the only time we really saw that in the show was in the original movie when he basically ended up being enslaved to Unicron for a bit when Unicron turned him into Galvatron. But in the show, and even in the shows that followed after they defeated Unicron, you know, Megatron was always his own guy. He was always the guy in charge. So I really didn't like seeing him as just sort of the pawn of this other, you know, older evil Decepticon. That just kind of annoyed me.
I thought we were trying to do pros first.
Sorry, good things. But just sort of on the subject of Megatron, I liked the fact that Megatron at least had more stuff to do. And I also liked the fact that there was more actual proper banter between him and Starscream, which is something that we saw all the time in the show and was, you know, kind of disappointingly absent from the previous one. So it was nice to see him, you know, chewing out Starscream a little bit.
You know who was kind of, who I thought was kind of fun to have in this time was the twins.
The twins. This is going to get some comments, I know.
I know.
Everybody hates the twins. They thought they were just, racial stereotypes and just not funny and stuff like that.
Was it the Wayans brothers who played?
No, it wasn't. They're calling them like the Jar Jar Binks of the new Transformers movie. I didn't really have a big problem with the twins. The only thing that kind of annoyed me about them, I guess, was the fact that they're not classic characters. They're just kind of thrown into the mix for comic relief. And, you know, I didn't mind the voice of them so much because, I don't know if it was the same actor, and I didn't actually look it up, but it sounded like, the voice sounded like one of the guys who did a voice on Mission Hill, one of the recurring characters on Mission
kids.
Hill. Yeah, one of the sort of punk kids that was always kind of giving them trouble and stuff. So, I think I liked the twins, but probably for very twisted reasons, in that it reminded me of the guy from Mission Hill.
Yeah. Totally.
So I didn't mind their banter so much. It was like, ha ha, Mission Hill guy, hee hee ha ha. Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I'm messed in the head.
Well, besides like the Transformers, I really thought that the Allspark visions that Sam kept having was really
Yes,
cool.
when Sam has the fragment of the Allspark and starts getting those crazy visions of the alien symbols and such. I haven't seen anybody else touch on this in any of the reviews, so maybe I'm the first, I don't know. But I actually liked that, and I'll tell you why. Because I used to collect the old comics, like way back at the beginning, and that reminded me of one of the subplots in the old comics. So let me just sort of give you the quick rundown. I have the first volume of the classic Transformers reprints here that, was it IDW? Yeah, IDW Publications has been putting out. Nice collection, fairly reasonably priced, glossy paper reprints. Anyway, the Transformers, like the Autobots, just went through hell during the early days of the comics. In fact, Optimus was reduced to being nothing more than a disembodied head. And here you see Buster, who's essentially the Sam character from the original comics, meeting up with him for the first time. So Optimus really needs his help to get back together with his body and to, you know, help all the other Autobots. And yeah, it's a great ongoing story arc, and, you know, one of the sort of more interesting parts of the early days of the comics. But where it factors into this whole Allspark vision thing, let me show you something. Okay, so basically here we have Buster talking to Optimus, and Optimus saying, I need your help. So he picks up these two leads, like electrical leads, puts them to his head, and gets zapped. So Buster's knocked unconscious by that for a bit. He goes on his merry way. He's got a splitting mother of a headache. And cut to a little bit later, he's got a headache, and he's sort of dealing with stuff, and finds suddenly he's levitating objects with the power of his mind, specifically mechanical objects. So essentially what had happened, where in the movie Sam gets the power from touching the slice of the Allspark, in the comics Buster gets the power from using these interface leads. And what had happened is Optimus had actually transferred the power of the Matrix into Buster's mind. So Buster could now manipulate objects with the power of his mind, through telekinesis, and just had an instinctive understanding of mechanical things and how they work. Very similar to what we saw in the movie. So I really liked that was sort of a little nod to the early days of the comics.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know what? Another thing I liked from the movie that I thought was better than the first one was the action sequences were so much better.
Yeah, a lot of people are kind of debating about that, but I have to agree. I think the action sequences were better done. Now, before you jump all over me, let me explain. In the first one, I found the action sequences often suffered from a problem that a lot of modern action movies do. Namely, the camera was just in way too close on the action, and you couldn't tell what the hell you were looking at half the time. Whereas in the second one, the camera was pulled back more, and you could at least see, better what was going on. But then the problem with that was with the design of the robots. Is they look so similar,
Yeah.
and the designs themselves are so complicated visually that it's hard to tell who's fighting who a lot of the time. But we'll get into that a little bit more later.
You know what? Like, one of the good things I thought, and I'm sure like everybody's gonna agree with me, is the history part, the enormous elaborate thing of the primes. That was terrific.
Yeah, the whole thing with the history of the primes was pretty cool. And how they used their bodies as a physical shield to seal up the Matrix and things like that. And I like the fact that they worked the Matrix into it as well, because that's a pretty major part of the lore of both the cartoon and the comics. Both the cartoon and comics had slightly different takes on what exactly the Matrix was and how it worked, but the essential basics of it were the same. So I was glad to see that they had worked that into the movie, and also the fact, the little thing about it being earned, and not found, and
like how Sam. I really like how Sam was given by Optimus Prime an honorary. That he was an honorary prime because of his help and everything like that.
Because of his selfless actions in helping the Autobots to defeat the Decepticons. Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned that you liked was that you felt there was more of a sense of peril.
Oh yeah.
Towards the human characters in this one.
Way more than the first one. Like the first one, you'd think that, oh my God, the Transformers are all gonna die. But this one, it was more like, okay, Megatron is out to basically kill Sam. Mm-hmm. And you just, and a few times he almost gets killed, but that was really cool. There's
a lot of moments where you're like, how do the humans keep from getting squashed?
Yeah, totally.
And of course, realistically,
they would
have been and should have been, but I mean, this is a movie, right? I mean, you don't apply real life logic to a movie, usually. At least not when it's something like Transformers.
No.
And lastly, I don't care what anybody says. I'm saying this as someone who's familiar with the old cartoon and the old comics and is a fan of both and always have been, always will be. Shia LaBeouf is perfectly cast as Sam. Sam being the movie version of the characters of Buster and Spike from the comic and cartoon respectively. Same character, different name. They all have Witwicky as the last name. So.
Oh, okay.
I also really like his dad, actually, the actor playing his dad, because I think he's a very good live-action version of that character, as we've seen him in the comics and the cartoon.
And I'm sorry, but Megan Fox, you can't get better than that for the chick.
Megan Fox,
I would do her.
Still smoking hot.
Yeah.
So that's the good. So that takes care of the short part of this video. It's kind of funny because when we left the theater, you may recall you asked me what I thought of his sort of first impressions, and I said, well, I thought it was better than the first one. No. I was still in my, you know how you kind of get in the zone when you're watching a movie in a theater sometimes, and it doesn't matter how good or bad it is, you just kind of get caught up in the spectacle or whatever, and your brain isn't quite working properly. Yeah, well, when I sat down to do sort of the point form notes of the good and bad things for this review that we're doing,
the pros and cons.
The pros and cons, and quickly realized that the cons list was far longer than the pros list. I realized there's no way in hell this was better than the first one. And you know, a lot of you are probably saying, well, that's not saying much because the first one wasn't that good. I thought the first one was better.
Yeah.
But we'll just leave it at that for now. So, problems with Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.